Good afternoon, County Grant staff. This is Sandy Rutherford. Just giving you an update. We have about 27 attendees signed in, and we're expecting 60. We're going to give just a couple of more minutes before we get started. I do appreciate your patience, and thank you for signing in. And welcome to today's webinar. County Grant staff, it's Sandy Rutherford again. Just a quick update. We have 39 people signed in, and we are going to get started in 2 minutes, in just 2 more minutes. Please stay tuned. We're going to get started now with today's Streamlining Shelby County Grants webinar, Part 2. I am Sandy Rutherford, County Grants Compliance Officer, and today's topics is going to center around creating efficiencies in the collection of grant data. Thank you for joining us. I have with me today Roger Henderson, our Grants Manager, and also Kathy Kirk Johnson, our Assistant County Attorney in Contracts Administration. Again, we're going to focus more on grant efficiencies, and what I would like for you to know is these efficiencies that we're putting into place, yes, do require some procedural changes, but it's going to require very minimal effort on the grant field's part. And also there will be minor changes to the current process. So those of you who tend to be change resistant, you can breathe easy. In today's segment, I'll be introducing the automatic processing of two particular grant forms. One, the grant fund number request form, which is generally submitted to finance. And secondly, the grants contract and encumbrance information sheet, which is submitted to contracts administration and purchasing. Some of the benefits of automating this process is electronic processes reduce paper waste. Also, Liquid Office is a system that will process the forms automatically and can also serve as an independent file source for the items that you have submitted. You will have as a Liquid Office user, you have a Sent Items tab file folder, and everything that you've processed will be kept in that folder unless you choose to delete it. Also, this process will help increase transparency in grant functions countywide and allow for additional oversight of grant actions that will aid us in the management, compliance, and fiscal accountability of our grants portfolio. Secondly, we're going to talk about some webinar highlights, and I'm going to turn this over to Roger Henderson, our grants manager, and then I'll be back with you shortly.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Roger Henderson, grants manager for Shelby County Government. I just want to go over some housekeeping things with you. The first one is this is part 2 of a grants webinar. Part 1 was last week. That PowerPoint presentation is on our website. It's on the internet website, so if you go to shelbycountytn.gov, navigate your way to the Community Services website, and then from there you can go to the Grants Office page, and you can find that PowerPoint from last week there. We have emailed all the answers to the questions that we received from last week to all the participants that asked questions. If you still have questions about last week's webinar, please feel free to email us at grantsoffice@shelbycountytn.gov. Last week we had an audio issue. This is new to us. Webinars overall are new to me and Sandy, and for whatever reason there is an audio kerfuffle, and it's not available. So if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. Our numbers that are there on the screen. The live voice is always better than whatever it is recorded anyway, right? Going forward, let's address how we're going to handle questions during this webinar segment. It's much like we did last time. You see a toolbar there on your screen. As you have questions, feel free to type in those questions on your screen and notate about what slide you had the question on, so we can reference the slide whenever you have a question. And we're going to tackle some of the questions at the very end of the presentation. So just keep in mind that we're going to get to a majority of the questions at the very end. If by chance your question isn't answered this time around, we're going to do just like we did last week. We're going to email you the answer to your question to make sure that everybody's questions are answered. All right, going forward, let's talk about feedback. Thank you all that gave us feedback last time. Your input is very important to us, so please feel free to hit us with whatever comments or concerns you have about the topics that are covered today. You can send those comments to Grants Office, shelbycountytn.gov, and also you can give us a phone call. There again, our information is there on the screen. And then lastly, we have another webinar we're going to do sometime in January, specifically about grant management. What we've done the last 2 webinars is talk about some new processes and some new things we've implemented to help grants overall become more efficient. And the next one that we're going to do in January is specifically about grants management. So I'm going to turn this back over to Sandy. She's going to go over two new processes that are going to be in Liquid Office to be taken to be implemented January 2nd. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn this back over to Sandy Rutherford, our Grants Compliance Officer. Sandy.
Thank you, Roger. Before I get started with the two forms and the Liquid Office routing process, I just want to give you a quick overview of today's agenda. We've already covered the welcome, and next I will introduce the grant fund number request form to be processed in Liquid Office. Following that, I'll introduce the grant contract and encumbrance information sheet, again to be processed through Liquid Office. With those forms, I'll introduce the form, I'll show you how to access the form in Liquid Office, I'll show you how to get set up as a Liquid Office user if you do need that capability, and I'll demonstrate the actual submission process in Liquid Office for you and explain the routing process and how to provide attachments with the forms if attachments are deemed appropriate. Please keep in mind that this new process for these two forms takes effect the first working day in 2013. So that date is as of January 2nd, 2013. We will expect all grant fund number requests and all grant contract and encumbrance information to be generated through Liquid Office. Oops. After I wrap up the Liquid Office session, Roger's going to come back and give you a quick update on the release of our version 2 Grants Office Policy and Procedures Manual. In those updates, he included pre-sire review details from last week's webinar, and also the grant-related form processing in Liquid Office that I'll be talking about today has been added to the manual, and just some general housekeeping cleanup. And then after that, there will be our question and answer session. Well, like Roger had said, feel free to pose your questions as we are conducting the webinar, and at the end of the session, we'll do our very best to answer those questions over the air, and if we're not able to do that, we will send you a response directly to your email within 2 business days. Okay. We're going to get started with talking about the grant fund number request form in Liquid Office. You may ask, what is the difference in the grant fund number request form that is going to be processed in Liquid Office versus the Excel file version that most of you have completed and emailed to finance directly? There is basically only one minimal change, and that would be that the form now asks for the grant fund name under or at the same time that it asks for a brief description of the program. Also, the electronic version is approved differently, and when I go through the demonstration of that, you'll have a better understanding. The benefits to using Liquid Office is that it's going to establish a uniform process that tracks our grant fund numbers and program information. It's also going to allow the Shelby County Grants Office to receive the grant award letter and agreements timely, which should be attached to your grant fund number request form. Also, there's an endeavor that IT is working on to be able to search the grant fund number request forms in OnBase. So as you submit these and they're approved, then they're being collected in OnBase, and hopefully we'll be able to search that system for these forms at a future point. And last, it allows us to be made aware of new and continuous grant fund programs and their characteristics so that we can better track grant data and analyze it as we need to. What you see on the screen now are the current grant fund number request forms. The one on the left is what many of you may have in your on your computer, saved on the server or on your desktop. It's just an Excel file. The other one is the form that is accessible through the county intranet under Finance, their index of forms in the grants section. So starting January 2013, you'll no longer use these two forms, neither the one that's on the intranet or the one that you may have in Excel. You will access your forms in Liquid Office from that point forward. This is what the Liquid Office grant fund number request form looks like. It, again, has very minimal changes. The biggest change is this here, grant fund number name that I've highlighted in yellow. That was added. Actually, some of the Excel files already have that field, so that may not even be something that's new to you, but just in case you're using an old form version, I wanted to bring that to your attention. Okay. I also wanted to point out that this is the signature line of the grant fund number request form. The one that is in Excel and on the intranet is at the top, and the one in Liquid Office is at the bottom. What you will need to do before you submit your grant fund number request form in Liquid Office is you will need to, as the requester, type your name here. I know in the Excel version it said that your email would be sufficient to serve as your signature, but I do need you to please type your name in for number 19. After the entire form has been completed, you will hit go for submit, and then next that will forward your form to Finance for their review. What I'm going to do at this point is take you into Liquid Office and show you how to sign in and show you where to access the forms. If you'll bear with me just a moment, please. Okay. This is Liquid Office. Once you sign into Liquid Office, you'll come to folder number 6, which is Grants. You'll click on Grants, and this is not what you should see, which says there's no forms there. I'm going to take just a short break and see if I cannot pull that link up for you. If you'll please be patient for just a moment.
Jason tell you to sign back in.
Okay, audience, I'm sorry. How you'll get to your Liquid Office sign-in screen is in your web browser at the top, go into your favorites, and there should be a file folder named Liquid Office under your favorites. Once you click on that file folder, you'll come to this screen that you see now. Type in your username. Again, if you don't have a username already and you do have a need to submit grant fund number request forms, you will need to get management's approval and then send a request to IT, Central IT, and ask them to give you to assign you a username and password for this purpose and access to the grants folder. Okay, we're going to log in. What you find next is under item number 6 is the grants folder. Click on that, and here are the 2 grant-related forms that we've been talking about. We're going to click on Grant Fund Number Request Form, and I'm going to show you how to process this form in Liquid Office. Because for the sake of time, I'm actually going to fill in a lot of these fields as tests. But naturally, if you did that, your form would be rejected. So you're going to use accurate information, and I'm just, for the sake of time, going to try to scoot through here. Some of these fields are required fields. If you get, if you think you've completed the application and you hit submit, it will tell you if a field was not entered correctly, so you'll have to go back and fix it before you can submit it. I'm going to show you how to include an attachment as well. I'm going to leave this date of grant, award letter, or agreement blank because I believe when I go to submit it, it's going to tell me that I have to enter something into that field. I'm going to make Roger Henderson responsible for this fund number request. And I'm the requester. Actually, I'm not going to enter this date either because I want to make sure that I can show you what happens when you don't fill out a form correctly. I'm going to go in and find an attachment. This is not going to necessarily be the attachment that I would attach with this with a grant fund number request, but you would choose the relative attachment. You would click Add. You would come down here and check the box and click Finish. That attaches your document for you. Okay? Now that I have completed everything, attached my documents, I'm going to click on Go. And it tells me a required field was found empty, and that's the date of the form. Okay, so I'm going to go down here and use today's date, and then I'm going to submit it again. Hit Go. Once it has been submitted successfully, you'll get this message here. What you do now is you wait for finance to review it, and once they've done so, you'll be notified in your Outlook email account. Okay. Moving on, we're going to look at the process for submitting the grant fund number request in Liquid Office. First of all, you have to be signed in to Liquid Office. That's the central component here. Next, you open the grants file in Liquid Office, which is what I just explained. It's item number 6. You'll double click on the PDF form that you want to complete and submit. You'll complete it again, complete the form actually, and then you'll attach the grantor's award notice and contract or agreement that relates to that particular grant fund number request. You'll then hit go to submit the item. What about the routing of the grant fund number request form? You can actually check the routing of your form in Liquid Office, and the routing is actually of this particular form is processed like this. The requester or originator submits the form. It's then assigned to finance. Finance staff member, and in this particular case was Gina Boone, will either approve or reject it. In this case, she approved it. If she was to choose to reject it, what she would do is make notes in the form, and when she rejects it, it would go back to the originator for them to correct or act on her comments. But in this case, it was approved. It goes to the requester, and so you have your form that you receive in your email account, and you can file it as you choose, and it's also going to be in your inbox in your Liquid Office account. Once the final approval is given, Grants Office also receives a copy so that they can put that form in the grants repository. Okay. Notification that your grant fund number request has been approved. I know that you want to ensure that this process takes place timely, that it's reviewed, it's not just sitting in someone's queue. Once you submit your request, the person receiving or the person in charge of reviewing the item gets approval. Once they review it and approve it, this is what you'll get back into your email notification box. All you have to do is on this first link, if you want to go straight to the approved form, right here, you just click here, and it'll open the form up for you. If you want to go into your Liquid Office box to see that form and see how it was traced and the times and just more detail of that, you can get to that link through utilizing the second link here. Next, we're going to move into the grants contract and encumbrance information sheet and how it's processed in Liquid Office. In a few minutes, you'll hear from Ms. Kathy Kirk-Johnson, our contracts attorney. But first, I want to just give you a quick summary of what the differences are in this particular form in Liquid Office versus the contract and encumbrance memo that you submit or have always submitted in the past. What's new on this particular form? On this form, Section 3 specifically asks, is this contract or encumbrance grant related? If it is, they ask you to name the grantor agency type, the name and title of the grant project, and the grantor's contract or award number, the CFDA number if it's federal, and the DUNS number for the subgrantee. DUNS numbers are required by federal government prior to any contract being executed. A DUNS number is a 9-digit number. It's actually DUNS stands for Data Universal Numbering System, And if your sub-grantee does not have a DUNS number, they will need to apply for it prior to the grants contract and encumbrance information sheet being submitted. If you have additional questions regarding DUNS numbers or how to obtain one, feel free to call our office and we will share that information with you. Secondly, this form was changed based on the cost of the item or service requested, which is item number 6 on the form that you're familiar with. We now ask, is that item or service being requested a revenue or an expenditure? And Kathy Kirk-Johnson is going to elaborate on that for you now.
Thanks, Andy. Kathy Kirk-Johnson with the County Attorney's Office, part of the Contract Administration Office. There are 2 matters to note here. The revenue box should be clicked only if it's a grant. Those revenue contracts are typically going to be grants only. The expenditure box should be checked when it's a subcontract or a subaward or a service contract that's utilizing grant funds. You would click the expenditure form. Again, we somewhat got together to collaborate a cooperative effort with information that we had, information that finance had, to centralize and streamline the data that is needed for grants compliance for Shelby County government. That's all.
Okay.
I'm going to give it back to Sandy.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Note down at the bottom, and I'm not sure that I've made this clear, but please be mindful, if the contract or the encumbrance is not grant related, you will not submit the grant contract and encumbrance form through Liquid Office. You will utilize the form that you're all familiar with and have been using for years now. You'll do that the very same way you always have, which is fill out the form, collect the signatures, attach the supporting documents, and deliver it to Contracts Administration. Again, the grants related contracts and encumbrances, those are the matters that are to be processed through Liquid Office. You will still need to follow the same process after the Liquid Office version, and I'll explain that in more detail. What I'm trying to say is Contract Administration will still need a hard copy packet even after you have gotten the approvals that you need through Liquid Office. Okay, here are the contract and encumbrance forms that you're familiar with. If you'll notice, we have added the word grants that I just highlighted to the contract and encumbrance information sheet that's processed through Liquid Office. Hopefully that'll help trigger that if it's not grants related, I don't use this form. All things non-grant related is to be processed with this form like you've always done. Okay. What I want to show you now is the signature or the official authorization that you received on your contract and encumbrance information sheet. Again, if it's non-grant like this signature information, then you just collect your signatures manually. If it is Liquid Office grant related, you will need to process the form through Liquid Office, allow all of the approvals to be given, and basically those approvals are coming from the Grants Office and Contracts Administration and then back to you. I'll go through the actual routing process here in just a moment in more detail. But you'll need to process the form through Liquid Office, And once you received an approved final copy to your email, it will have the grant department e-signature stamp. In this particular case, Roger Henderson signed off on this item. So you would then print this document and then go on and collect by manually the department head signature, division director, elected official signature. Then you would attach your complete contract packet and supporting documents and agreements and deliver it to contracts administration like you always have. The reason that these grant, contract, and encumbrance information sheets are routed through Liquid Office prior to being sent to contracts administration is to keep the grants office centralized process in place so that we're aware of what is in the pike, what is going on with grants, and again, just the additional oversight. Here is the process for submitting the contract and encumbrance information sheet, and Kathy Kirk-Johnson is going to share an overview on this.
Thank you, Sandy. Just to recap the process for submitting the grants, contract, and encumbrance information sheet in Liquid Office. You'll sign on to Liquid Office, click Grants, click the Grant, Contract, Encumbrance Information Sheet. You'll complete the form, and you'll attach the grant or grant-related contract only. The purpose of this is to allow grants to collect data. At this point, contract administration is not reviewing the contract. I want to make that clear. This is for purposes of collecting data and completing your encumbrance and information sheet. Once approved, you'll print the form and you'll process through normal channels. Sandy?
Okay. I talked a few minutes ago about the routing process of the grants, contract, and encumbrance information sheet. It is just a little bit different than the grant fund number form, and the difference is the originator or requester, you in the grants field, is going to submit the form. The form is going to first come to grants. Grants is going to look at the information and make sure that everything's kosher. Contracts administration has asked grants to give the first initial review of grants-related contracts. So we're going to do that. We're going to forward it to contracts administration. Once it gets there, their assigned staff member is either going to approve it or reject it. If they reject it, you'll get notification of that, and we will too. Once it's approved, it'll come back to grants so that grants can give their final stamp of approval, which is what I showed you a moment ago, that these forms must have prior to being delivered to contracts administration for them to execute the documents. The final approval is distributed to the grants office for our repository through Liquid Office. That is an automated forward rule that makes everybody's life easier because it requires no effort on our part. Okay, you may wonder, how can I be certain that someone is going to be looking at my form timely? And what happens is those who are reviewers are in the grants office, the finance office, contract administration. They are all set up to receive notification that an item is in their work queue. So if you have submitted a grants, contract, encumbrance form, it will show up in their email. It'll tell them who it's from. In this case, I submitted this as a test. It'll even give them the date and time so that they know, how long it's been sitting and waiting for review. What they can do at that point in time is go in and look at the form and execute on it based on approval or notes that they need to make and send it back to you. But we are guaranteeing that these items will not sit in the queue. We are very conscientious that time is of the essence on a lot of these matters. Okay. This is the notice that the requester will receive when their form has been given final approval. As you see here, it'll tell you final approval. It'll tell you what the form is, the date and time, and you can click here and actually pull the form up. I'm going to turn this back over to Kathy. This is the last slide relative to liquid office processing, and she's going to cover what not to forget about the grants contract and encumbrances information sheet and processing your contracts.
Just briefly, I know it may seem like a lot, but it's actually a very quick process. Just wanted to remind everybody not to forget the hard copy. Of course, what is required is 4 originals to be routed to the mayor. So print the hard copy, obtain the signatures as usual, forward it to the contract administration office for normal processing. Sandy?
Okay. Again, what the contract administration will be looking for on the grants-related contracts and encumbrances is the form that has the grants office electronic stamp of approval, which is right here. So that's the form that you want to print and collect the signatures on and attach to the top of your packet to be delivered to Contracts Administration. At this time, I'm going to turn over the webinar to Roger Henderson. He's going to talk to you about the updated policies and procedures for Shelby County Grants Office.
Hey folks, my name is Roger Henderson, Grants Manager for Shelby County Government. We'll go over just some policy and procedure update stuff real quick. If you remember, back in June we did a presentation about grants, and we rolled out our policy and procedure manual for the grants office. This policy and procedure manual is located on our webpage. There again, you go to Shelby County tn.gov, go to Community Services. You can find a link to the grants office there, and you can see the you can view the policy procedure manual right there. So we've now updated the policy procedure manual that was rolled out in June with a second version. This is policy and procedure 2.0, if you will, and we've included the items we've covered during the last webinar, the last one we did Thursday, and this one. So you'll see the 3 sections that have been updated: 3.1.2 to include the grant fund number request form, and then those 3 items we covered last Thursday is covered in 3.1.4. And then lastly, the policy procedure is updated to include the grants contract and encumbrance information sheet. So if you can, please navigate over to the grants office webpage, take a look at the policy procedure manual as we've updated it. We've got a couple other changes that's going to come about very soon. But this is a live document. This is something that's ongoing, and things are just going to change as we continue to update and fine-tune the policies that affect grants in Shelby County government. Likewise, in that same page, there is a form we'd like for y'all to print out, just an acknowledgement form that you've taken a look at the policy procedures, and if we would ask that you guys would sign that form and scan it back over to us, and you could forward that over to grants office at shelbycountytn.gov. Well, guys, this is going to conclude our presentation today. I want to open this up for some questions and some comments. But before I do that, please take note of the of our contact information. You can always email us at grantsoffice@shelbycountytn.gov. My information is up there. I'm Roger Henderson. My phone number is 222-2087. Excuse me. And Sandy Rutherford, our grants compliance officer, is 222-3960. The link to our website, or to our webpage, is down at the bottom. So if you don't mind, give us just a second. We're going to flip through some of the questions and get back with you in just a moment. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us today. We appreciate it. And we're going to look at some of the questions in just a moment.
Okay. We have a question that asks, was an agenda sent? Yes, an agenda was sent with this webinar notification. Unfortunately, I don't believe it got disseminated to everyone, but the agenda was placed on the website as of Monday, and is still there. So hopefully you can refer to it there. And if you have any questions between now and our next webinar, which we don't have a definite date at this point in time, but it will be sometime in January. We'll get those notices out as soon as we can. Feel free to call us or email us. Okay. I'm hearing that the type of font on some of the slides is somewhat small, so we will keep that in mind for future webinars.
Yeah, we're going to post this this presentation on the website, and you could find it right next to the one that was covered last Thursday. And if it's a little small, if the fonts are a little small, we can make those a little bigger for you to take a look at.
We have a question. If I don't have a user ID and password for Liquid Office, how can I get them? If I have them but don't know where they are, how can I find them? Again, if you are attempting to access the grants file folder and submit either the grant fund number request form or the grant contracts and encumbrance information sheet, you need permission from your manager. Once your manager has given you permission, send an email to IT or give them a call at 222-2700, and they will get you set up or reset your password for you.
Give us 1 second. We're looking through a couple other ones here. All right, so we have a question. How do you want us to handle MOUs that don't have any funding attached to them?
My answer to that would be if it's related to any services that are to be provided pursuant to a grant, then it should be submitted with the form. Usually an MOU will have a collaboration of several partners under a grant, and that is the first set of contracts, and then subcontracts will follow from the MOU. Oftentimes there will be an MOU where we agree on the front end to do something, and later on we'll pay for it. So I think for centralized collection of data, that should contain this form.
All right. We're about out of time. We don't want to keep y'all too late. Thank y'all for tuning in to us, and we are going to reserve some of the. We're going to take one more apparently.
Yes, we have one more question from Tony Square. Will the grants contract and encumbrance information sheet be used for vendor contracts within the department? If that department will be utilizing funds from a grant, yes.
Easy enough. Folks, that's going to conclude our webinar for today. Thank you all again for tuning in to us, and we're going to send out another agenda, probably the first part of January, late part of December, talk about another webinar that deals specifically with grants management. we're going to sign off. We have a couple other questions that we're going to shoot to folks in the field. Give us a call if we can help you. Thank you so much.